Hey, how's it going? So we're going to be doing the component store. We're going to create a state that's going to have some data in it, and then we're going to display that data in HTML, and then we're going to have a button. When we click that button, the state changes, right? So it's a very, very simple project just to demonstrate on a very basic level how this stuff works. I'm not going to go into effect because I have a video on this, a separate video, and it's basically a function that manages it's basically a function that updates your state based on an observable, right? So I mean, it's nothing special about it. I have a video on explaining it, but I want to make this video super basic, right? So just really, really fundamentals. So I'm not going to go into effect because it can get a bit confusing. Just watch the video on it. It's one video before this one. Okie doke, so let's create. I have my play component is a blank component. I just created a play component, so it's here. It's blank. So first thing we need to do is we need to create a store. So let's go create a folder. Let's add a file. We call this. Let's call this global store.ts, right? So this is our global store. So the first thing we need to do, one second. Oh yeah, I forgot to do this thing. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you need to install this npm install. You can find this code in the in here. Where's the thing? Installation. So it's going to be in here. All right, so you need to follow the instructions. Once this is installed, all right, you need to initialize a state. Okay, so to do that, right, we need to import. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to import component state, component store, my apologies. So we need to import this, okay? So component store from whatever this thing is, right? Then we need to create a new component, right? So we need to export class global, whatever you want to call it, shake and bake, whatever you want. Global, then it should, now this is the core, extends component store. So this is this thing here. All right. Is this correct? Yeah. Normally it requires type, but I mean we can just put any, and then it's going to work as well. I'm not going to do types in this video, right? So I'm just this is kind of for very basic demonstration of how this thing works. So then you need to add a constructor like all other components. Now in super, this is where your state goes. So state, you can think of state as a JSON server object. Do you know, like when you run JSON server, it has a database JSON, and you have a file in there that you can access. So this is exactly the same. So JSON server, I'll show you. JSON server, there you go. This one here. So if you can work with this thing, JSON server, you see the structure, except for syntax is slightly different. But I mean, the idea and the concepts behind it are identical. So let's create names. It's going to be an array with John, and let's put Anne. So that's going to be our names. And let's create another one. Let's call them cars. That's going to be Tesla. And let's put Volkswagen i4. Makes no difference. Put whatever you want, okay? Makes no difference. Okay, so this is pretty much done. That's our component, that's our state, and that's it. Now we're ready to use it, all right? So now we need to inject, oh, whoops, I forgot something very, very important. So this is gonna be a dependency injection, right? So we need to make sure that we add this code here, this one here, right? And we need to import injectable, this one here. Whoops. Like so. So you see this comes from, like when you create a service, you see this thing in here, injectable. You can, honestly, you can just copy and paste it. It's gonna be the same thing. This saves you time creating providers when you do dependency injection, okay? Okay, so now we're ready to do dependency injection for this store component. So we go into our store component. We need to import it, of course. What did I call it? I called it global. There you go. From yeah, so there it is. Store and global store. There you go. Now again, it's standard dependency injection. So I like to call it public. Some people do it private. I call it global and then global. Okay, so now we're ready to use what it doesn't like in here. Global, global. Not suitable injection token. Global store maybe. Oh, I see. Because global is probably some kind of a function. That's why. All right, so we have this thing going. Now, okay, so first thing we want to do, we want to display our content of the store, right? So the way to do that is this global store, and the operator is called select. I think it's select, right? Yeah, select. Then we have state in here, and then we can do state dot, let's do cars. Now you have to remember that they are observables, so you have to use subscribe, like so. I think that should do it, right? Yeah. So you see you have the store. Now, this is a bit confusing. I know, sorry about this. Okay, so subscribe is a function that has a argument in it. So we're gonna call it arg, right? And then you can console log arg. I just put console log because it's a lot quicker. But basically, observable is like an async function that spits out the value. To get access to this value, you have to put subscribe. Then you have to put the argument, and that argument is going to be whatever comes out of the observable. Now, this is exactly the same as creating a synchronous function. Do you remember a synchronous function in JavaScript? You create await, right? And then dot then, remember the code .then, right? Then you have argument, which is argument, and then whatever, so await is going to spit out a resolved or unresolved promise. So normally it's resolved, right? And then the argument becomes that um, value of the whichever comes out of the function, resolution to the promise. Do you remember? Right? So this is exactly the same. This is exactly the same, right? So now, as you can see, we're displaying it. Now, you can do it this way. Alternatively, you can do it in here as well. So we can call this all cars, okay? And then this select, again, state, and then we can put state.cars, okay? So now this code and this code are exactly the same. All right, so the only difference, we are going to now call this function from here. So again, this global store dot the name of the function, which is all cars. Honestly, it's a good idea to put this thing, because this indicates that it's an observable, right? So now you can visually see, okay, it's observable, and because it's an observable, we have to put the subscribe code. I'm just gonna put arg, whatever argument, right? And then we're gonna console log it. Arg, there you go. Now it works. You see? There you go. There it is. Okie dokes. So this is basically this part here. It's called reading. So we did installation. Now, I'm not going to go through lazy installation because honestly, I don't see a use case for it at all. But there is a set state, and it's very, very, I don't see a use case for it, so I'm not going to cover it, right? This is a lot better because you're going to be, probably most of your time, you're going to be using this. All right. Now, if you're really, really, really stuck, just let me know. I'll do it for you, or I'll make a separate video on how to do lazy installation or whatever. Okay, so the next question is, how do we alter cars? So let's just add something to cars. So we are going into this field here. The easiest probably is, I'll make the state, set state is the easiest, because this set state is identical to React set state. You know, you have use state as a hook, and then inside the hook you always have your state and then set state, right? So this is exactly the same. Like, this is pretty much copy and paste from React. All right, so let's just add a car. Let's add, what are the latest electric vehicles? Oh, Taycan, right? Taycan is Porsche electric vehicle. Let's add Taycan into it, right? So we're gonna go this global store. So we're referencing our store. And then we're going to use set state. All right, so state is gonna be, that's previous state. We call this, let's call this previous state, right? Previous state. Remember, it's exactly the same as in React, identical, right? So return, and then we want to obviously copy our previous state, so the whole thing doesn't blow up. And then we want to add cars, all right? It's an array. Again, we want to copy the state cars, so the whole thing stays. Otherwise, we're gonna overwrite it. Oh yeah, it sometimes complains that there is no type assigned to it, so just assign any, and it's going to work. Dot state cars. Oh, my apologies. Previous state cars. It's just that I normally use previous state cars, and then whichever car you want to add. Let's add whatever. Which one? Taycan. We want a Taycan. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, it appears twice, and I'll explain to you the code. This is because this triggers first, right? When state changes, just like in React, component is going to change. Let's call it BMW, otherwise the thing is complaining, you see? Yeah. So what happens is, right, so this thing fires first, then state changes, and then it reloads, and then it fires again. Does that make sense? So that's why you see it twice. So does that make sense? I hope this is easy explanation, because this is so easy. This is, if you understand React, this is piss easy. Now, this one is patch state is exactly the same as set state. It's exactly the same. The only difference is that you do not need to write this code in here. You see this previous state? You just write this code in here, and it will find cars and update it for you. So it's effectively just skipping this part. But honestly, you can just forget about patch state if you want. Set state does exactly the same thing. And the final one is update state. It's exactly the same as set state, only you can, it's like a function where you can put an argument into it, right? And then see the way like I had to manually put BMW in here. Now, for us to realistically update the state, we have to create a function which will have an argument inside the function. Actually, I'll do it for you, so you see what I mean. You'll see the benefit, right? So let's call it update cars, right? We have an argument, and then we are basically calling this as I'm not gonna do type, because I was going to put void, whatever, makes no difference. And when we're gonna put argument in here, and then you see we have to insert argument in here, and now we have to call this function. So it will be this update cars. Oh, whoops. Update cars, and now we put in our BMW. And then tada, it works. You see? Again, it's the same thing because it's re-rendered because state changed. Now you see, so we have to create an external function, so we can pass values into the state update. You see this argument. Now, updater is effectively this standalone function. So it eliminates the need to create a separate function. Okay. Now the downside is you cannot call it inside the, because it makes no sense to do it, right? You have to create it here. So let's say update cars from store. All right, we're gonna do it this way. This dot updater. Oh, whoops, my apologies. I'm using Pomodoro timer again, so like I always have this thing popping up. Updater, all right. Let me just real quick. Go into my notes just to make sure that my Yeah. So basically it has two arguments. So we have state and then we have argument. Now the tricky thing about this is you do not need to pass state when you're calling updater, but I'll show you. So we want to return. Now you have to put this in here, all right, before you put your object. Otherwise it's not going to work, right? So if you do this, it's not going to work. You need to put the thingies like so. So we obviously want to copy the entire state, and then we can use, let's say, cars, right? Dot state cars, because we want to copy all of the cars. And now we are putting in the argument from here. Do you see? So do you see how this is identical to this, basically, right? Only this updater is a built-in function for this. So now if we want to update, right, we are going to this up, oh, whoopsie, my apologies. So this will be global store. We're gonna call this function. What do we call this? Yeah. Now the confusing part is gonna start right now. So you see the way the function has two arguments. It has two arguments. It has state and an argument. You do not, I repeat, do not need to pass state as an argument. If you just pass whatever you want to add into the state, just put, let's put Lexus, okay? Expected 0 arguments, but got one. 1 second. 1 second. Oh, yeah. I forgot. You see, you're gonna get this error, okay? You're gonna get this error. This is because you did not define type for your argument, second argument, okay? So as soon as you define it, it's going to work. You see, now it's working. If you remove the type, it's going to create the error. Well, let me just show you that it's working. There you go. You see, now we have Lexus added. If we remove the type from here, it will complain. You get a big fat error, you see? So if you are getting this error, you need to add the type. Okay? So now, again, back to the confusing thing. And the confusing is that you do not need to pass state as an argument. You just put one argument into it, and it will take it from here. Think about state as just an invisible argument that exists only inside the function, and you don't need to think about it when you are calling the function. You only need to think about it when you're creating the function. All right, so now I showed you how to update them. Now let us display them. All right, so we're gonna do two things now. We're gonna display it in HTML, and we're going to create a button. So we click the button, and let's say this function is going to run. All right. Now I know what you're gonna probably think. Would it be awesome if you could just run this inside the HTML? And it doesn't work. I tried it. It just doesn't work, unfortunately. All right, so we're gonna comment this out. Go to HTML. I don't know. I don't like. Let's just. Whoops. What the hell is this? Let's just map through them straight away. Right. So we are going to map. So ng4 equals let. I just type value honestly all the time. Of Here we need to put global store dot, and what you want to map? You want to map cars. Let's just map cars or names. Let's just do names. No, actually, let's do names. So I'll show you how to, create another one. So we have names, global store of names. Now it's going to complain that it's not enough, that it's and you have to put async pipe. Why is it complaining? Wait a second. So global store. One sec. Uno momento. Oh yeah. So the first thing we need to do, my apologies. We need to create a get all names. Otherwise, otherwise we're gonna get confused. So get all names. So again, it's gonna be an observable equals this. Select state names. So now we are creating. These are called selector functions. So selector functions allow you to access states. Like I mentioned before, you cannot really write this inside the HTML. It's just that when I write service functions, I normally write them right in HTML, so I'm kind of using slightly my own logic. So, okay, so now we need to reference this in using global store. Of global store dot this thing here. Now you have to use a sync function because remember, this is an observable. When you see an observable, you have to connect either subscribe or a sync function to it, right? So we're gonna display. So this is a standard mapping method. So this argument is gonna be whatever comes out of the map method, right? And that's gonna be our array that we're mapping. Property v does not exist. I think somewhere something got. Wait. Value, right? Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it does that. Yeah, and we also need to do div and if equals global store dot all names. One sec. Yeah, it's because I'm not. Yeah. So now it's displaying. Okay, so you actually do not need this code. I forgot you do not need this code. It's not services, so you don't need this code in here. It's going to work anyway. Because you see, the good thing about store is that when state changes, it re-renders. So you see, like in services, you have to wait a bit, and then when fetch happens, you have to update the variable, and then variable gets displayed. So you have to create separate code where you only display a block of HTML when the variable from service is true. But like you don't need to do that in store because it automatically re-renders for you. Oh my god, okay, so this is done. Now we're gonna create a button. Call it add name. Okay, so which way do we want to do it? Let's just do it through the updater. All right, let's just do it through the updater. So let's do add name from store like this. So it's gonna be again same code. We're gonna have state, name argument, so you guys can see that it's again we have to define a type, otherwise it's gonna start complaining. And then we're gonna return. I wonder if it's going to work without this thing, right? So we're gonna dot state, and then names. We're gonna go dot state dot names, and then we're gonna put name argument, right? Honestly, this should work. To be honest with you, I think this should work, but we'll see. So, and we are going to do a click global store. Whoops. And then we are going to run the function global store dot add name from store, and then name is going to be what name? Your mama. Okay, don't quote me on this stuff. Yeah, it still works. You see? Now we click and it adds. I just like your mama jokes. My apologies. Oh, I'm not gonna tell any, otherwise I'm gonna get delisted from banned from internet forever because of my your mama jokes. Yeah, so you don't need this bracketing in here. I don't know why I said you need them. Oh, yeah. If you're using arrow function, then you need them without return, right? So if you are going to do it this way, like so, then you need without the return, then you need the thingies, right? Yeah. Now you need them. You see, now you need them. Otherwise, you are gonna get like so. Because you see, if you start to put the object, it will think you're actually running some kind of function thingy. You see? Because this looks like an object, you know what I mean? Okay. Yeah, so that's it. Done. Okay, I think that's about it. Now from here, I'm assuming you probably should be able to run through the right. Now let me just real quick talk about effect. No, I'm not gonna do it. It's in the video because I won't be able to add any more value than in the other video. Because you see, basically, when you're using, if you watch the other video, you can run these functions inside the dot effect. I was like console logging using tab to console log, but in reality, inside the tab, you can just use these functions, all of them, right? And you can access state, you can change state, whatever you want inside of the tab, right? Honestly, let me just do one for you so you'll be able to see it, right? Okay, so effect is a little bit tricky, right? So let's do effect demo. This dot effect. Now, in here we're gonna have an argument, all right, which is gonna be an observable. Now, basically, what effect functions are, they are a method to handle observables like fetch functions and stuff like that, right? They're kind of like asynchronous programming in a way, because you cannot really use await. You can use await, but I mean, that's not the way they do it in Angular. They use observables. Okay, so we have our arg, which is an observable, and then we're going to return arg, which is an observable, and then we're gonna pipe. And now inside the pipe, we can, whatever, console log something. Yeah, let's just console log it. Why is it complaining? Oh, yeah, because we have to tap in console log. Yeah. So let's import tap from RxJS operators, I think they're called, right? Yeah. We might need as well import of from RxJS. Yeah, it's just RxJS off, I think, right? Yeah. Now this one is, I'll tell you later why I imported this. So tap, we're going to do tap in here. Now this now is standard Angular pipe, completely standard stuff. Console log, right? So you see, if we go here and we go this global store dot effect demo. Now, and let's pass something into it, just something, whatever, right? Now it's going to console log it, right? Yeah, you see? Now it's console logging it. Okay, so now you think to yourself, now what's the point of this mumbo jumbo? Why not just use a standard, state update or whatever? So in here, you see, like in here, we can run a function. So let's say we want to, whatever, let's just run this thing here. Update. Oh shit! I need to put this. I think this dot. Maybe add name. Yeah, let's just do add names from store, and then we call this. We put an argument. Actually, we can just put the argument from here because this is gonna be our arg from tap. It's probably gonna complain that it's not. And then we're gonna pass arg from tap. So now naturally, you see our names state gets updated almost immediately, right? So you're probably wondering why would you bother with this effect? Because I mean, it's close to no different to updater, right? It's close to no different to updater or set state, whatever. Why would you do this? This is because these functions here, they are synchronous. Okay, they fire immediately, right? Whereas this one, if you're fetching something, you need to run it through a pipe so that the code finishes and then it updates, right? But honestly, I can't really tell you exactly why. That's why I didn't want to do effect, because I will tell you why. Because there is a debounce function inside inside the inside the use state, I think, right? Where was it? 1 second. I'll find it for you. 1 second. 1 second. Oh, yeah. That's my fault. Now you have a debounce function inside reading. So when you are reading state, if it's asynchronous state, you can wait when you create your selector. Where is it? Yeah. So you see this select, and then at the end we're putting debounce. So once all of your asynchronous functions finish, it will then spit out the value, the state. Now, if we want to update the state and it's asynchronous, we have to use effect, right? Because otherwise it's going to start updating the state before data has arrived, and you're going to get a big fat error. Does that make sense? So that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. So asynchronous code comes in, it goes into the pipe, it gets delivered, it gets changed, and then state gets updated. So if you want to do it with an asynchronous code, let's just create a, you see, that's the reason why I have off in here, so because I wanted to show you a observable, because observable is kind of like an asynchronous code. So we're going to create a real quick observable, my observable, call it like this, equals off, and let's do 1, 2, 3, right? So an observable off, basically what's going to happen is it's going to, you see, like the difference between a standard value and an observable. In standard value you get a box of values and that's it. In observable, these values are more like conveyor belt, so they get passed one by one. It's like a stream of values. So we are going to pass this in here, and it's going to update our names, I think, right? This. Again, it happens almost immediately because there is no delay, but I mean, you see what I mean, right? So now it just updates the state. But now you can think about this as a fetch function, and then it goes into here as an argument, right? You can do it in here, or you can run it in here if you want. Doesn't make a big difference, right? And then it updates the state. That's it. And of course, why I like store more than services, because honestly, you can do all of this in services, is that the state is live, right? If you do it through services, you constantly have to, with every change, you have to reassign, you have to reload the new data and reassign it to the variable, and then variable gets displayed in the HTML. Whereas with this thing, you see it re-renders automatically for you. So I prefer this method to service. Okay, that's about it. So that's full end-to-end component store management, and this is where you can find it. I'll link this in the description below, so if you have any questions, feel free to. Oh yeah, in case you're wondering how do I add the bounds, it's super easy. You just put it at the end of your selector code. You see, this select blah blah blah. Final code is the bounds, and that's it, and it still works. Again, final code debounce like that, and it works. This is just in case if you have some asynchronous code, you can just add it, and then that's it, it works. All right, that's it. Well done. Take care. Bye-bye.